In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you something that will change how you see every dollar in your wallet, every number in your bank account, every assumption you have about your financial future. I'm going to show you a pattern. A pattern that has repeated with terrifying precision across 3,000 years of human history. A pattern that has destroyed the savings of billions of people across dozens of civilizations. A pattern that is playing out right now, in real time, with the currency you use every single day. This pattern has 7 stages. Every currency that has ever collapsed, and I mean every single one, has moved through these 7 stages in the same order, with the same characteristics, leading to the same devastating conclusion. The Roman denarius. The French assignat. The German Papiermark. The Argentine peso. The Venezuelan bolivar. The Zimbabwean dollar. Hundreds of currencies across thousands of years. 7 stages. Always the same 7 stages. Here's what should terrify you. Monetary historians have analyzed where the United States dollar currently sits within this pattern. Their conclusion is not a matter of debate among those who understand monetary history. The dollar has completed stages 1 through 5. It is now entering stage 6. Stage 7 is the collapse. And here's the thing about stage 6 that most people don't understand: it's the point of no return. Throughout history, no currency that has entered stage 6 has ever recovered. Not one. The progression from stage 6 to stage 7 becomes inevitable, unstoppable, a mathematical certainty. The only variable is time. Sometimes stage 6 lasts years. Sometimes it lasts months. But it always ends the same way. Most people will not believe this until it's too late. They will dismiss it as fear-mongering until their savings are worthless. They will call it conspiracy theory until their retirement evaporates. They will trust the experts until those experts are proven catastrophically wrong. But you don't have to be most people. In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to walk you through each of the 7 stages in detail. I'm going to show you exactly how they've played out in history, with specific examples and specific consequences. And I'm going to show you precisely where we are today, so you can make informed decisions while decisions are still possible. This is history's warning. The only question is whether you'll heed it. Underscore 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 underscore. Let's begin with stage 1, the monetary foundation. Every currency collapse begins with stability. This might seem counterintuitive, but it's essential to understand. Currencies don't fail randomly. They fail because they start from a position of strength that creates false confidence. Stage 1 is the establishment of sound money. A currency backed by something real, gold, silver, commodities, that cannot be created arbitrarily. This creates trust. This builds an economy. This allows for long-term planning and saving. In Rome, stage 1 was the establishment of the denarius around 211 BC. This silver coin contained approximately 4.5 grams of pure silver. It was real money in the truest sense. A Roman soldier knew exactly what his payment was worth because it was worth the silver it contained. A merchant could accept payment with confidence because the value was intrinsic to the coin itself. This monetary stability helped Rome build the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen. Trade flourished because people trusted the currency. Savings accumulated because money held its value. Long-term projects became possible because the future was financially predictable. In France, stage 1 was the livre, which had maintained relatively stable value for centuries. In Germany, it was the goldmark, tied to gold and stable for decades. In America, it was the dollar linked to gold, maintaining roughly consistent purchasing power from 1792 to 1913. Stage 1 creates the foundation of trust that the later stages will systematically destroy. People learn to believe in the currency. They build their lives around it. They make decades-long plans denominated in it. They cannot imagine it failing because it has never failed within their memory. This trust is essential for the trap. Without it, the later stages couldn't function. People would never accept paper promises if they didn't first believe in monetary stability. The United States completed Stage 1 over more than a century of gold-backed currency. By 1913, the dollar was one of the most trusted currencies in the world. Americans believed in their money with an almost religious faith. That faith would be exploited. Underscore 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 underscore. Stage 2, the institutional capture. Once trust is established, those who seek to exploit the monetary system must gain control of it. This requires creating institutions that appear to serve the public while actually serving private interests. In Rome, Stage 2 was gradual. The Roman state itself controlled the mints, and over time, those who controlled the state gained the power to modify the currency. Emperors discovered they could adjust the metal content of coins without public knowledge or consent. In modern economies, Stage 2 is the establishment of central banks. These institutions are presented as necessary for economic stability, but their true function is to transfer control of the money supply from the public to private banking interests. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 marks Stage 2 for the United States dollar. As I've detailed before, this law was drafted in secret by representatives of the largest banking interests, passed during the Christmas holiday when Congress was largely absent, and signed by a president who may have later regretted his decision. The Federal Reserve was sold as a public institution that would prevent banking panics and stabilize the currency. In reality, it gave private banking interests control over the nation's money supply. The regional Federal Reserve banks are owned by private commercial banks. The policies enacted consistently favor financial institutions over ordinary citizens. What makes Stage 2 so insidious is that it happens before any visible damage occurs. The currency still appears sound. The economy still functions normally. People don't notice that control has shifted from public to private hands because the effects won't be visible for years or even decades. Stage 2 is about positioning. It's about gaining the leverage that will be used in later stages. It's about capturing the machinery of money creation before that machinery is put to use. The United States completed Stage 2 in 1913. The trap was set. The mechanism was in place. All that remained was to use it. Underscore 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 underscore. Stage 3, the initial debasement. With institutional control established, the next stage begins, the first deliberate reduction in the currency's real value. This is always presented as a temporary measure, an emergency response to unusual circumstances, a necessary action that will soon be reversed. It is never reversed. In Rome, Stage 3 began under Emperor Nero in 64 AD. Facing fiscal pressures from his extravagant spending and expensive building projects, Nero reduced the silver content of the denarius from 4.5 grams to about 3.8 grams, a reduction of approximately 16%. The public didn't notice. The coins looked the same. They spent the same. Commerce continued normally. But the government had discovered something intoxicating. It could create purchasing power from nothing by secretly reducing the value of the currency. In America, Stage 3 began almost immediately after the Federal Reserve's creation. During World War I, the money supply expanded dramatically. The dollar was still linked to gold, but the ratio of dollars to gold began to shift. More paper claims existed than could be redeemed. The government learned the same lesson Nero had learned: monetary expansion was politically painless. It funded the war without visible taxation. It created prosperity in the short term. And it established a precedent that would be followed again and again. Stage 3 in America accelerated during the Great Depression. In 1933, President Franklin Roosevelt took the nation off the domestic gold standard, making it illegal for American citizens to own monetary gold. They were forced to exchange their gold for paper dollars at $20.67 per ounce. After collection, the gold was revalued to $35 per ounce, an instant 40% devaluation of the dollars citizens had received. This was outright theft disguised as monetary policy. Americans who had trusted the government, who had saved in the currency they were told was sound, who had followed the rules, they were robbed. Their gold was taken, and they were given paper that was immediately worth less than what they had surrendered. But the dollar was still linked to gold internationally. Foreign governments could still exchange dollars for gold. This provided some constraint on monetary expansion, some limit to how far debasement could go. That constraint would not last. Underscore 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 underscore. Stage 4, the acceleration. Once initial debasement succeeds without immediate consequences, the pressure to continue becomes irresistible. What was supposed to be temporary becomes permanent. What was supposed to be limited becomes unlimited. The debasement accelerates. In Rome, Stage 4 unfolded over 2 centuries. Emperor after emperor reduced the silver content of the denarius. Marcus Aurelius debased it to fund his wars. Commodus debased it to finance his spectacles. Septimius Severus slashed it to pay his armies. By 268 AD, the denarius contained only 5% silver. A coin that once held 4.5 grams of precious metal now held less than a quarter gram. The debasement had accelerated to the point where the currency was barely distinguishable from worthless metal. In America, Stage 4 began in 1971 with the Nixon shock. President Richard Nixon announced that the United States would no longer redeem dollars for gold. The last constraint on currency creation was removed. The dollar became pure fiat, money by government decree, backed by nothing but faith. What followed was predictable to anyone who knew the historical pattern. In 1971, the M2 money supply, the measure of dollars in circulation plus savings accounts and similar deposits, stood at approximately $700 billion. By 1980, it had more than doubled to $1.6 trillion. By 1990, it was $3.3 trillion. By 2000, $4.9 trillion. By 2010, $8.8 trillion. By 2020, $15.4 trillion. Then came the pandemic response. In 2020 and 2021, the Federal Reserve created more dollars than had been created in the first 2 centuries of American history combined. The M2 money supply exploded from $15.4 trillion to over $21 trillion in less than 2 years. The charts showing money creation went vertical, almost straight up. This is Stage 4 in its terminal phase. The acceleration has become exponential. The debasement is no longer subtle. It's obvious to anyone who looks at the data. The purchasing power of the dollar is collapsing in real time. Since 1971, the dollar has lost approximately 87% of its purchasing power. A dollar today buys what 13 cents bought when Nixon made his announcement. And the pace of loss is accelerating. Underscore 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 underscore. Stage 5, the public awakening. As debasement accelerates, eventually the public begins to notice. They may not understand the mechanism, but they feel the effects. Prices rise. Savings buy less. The cost of living outpaces income growth. Something feels wrong. In Rome, Stage 5 manifested as a flight from the denarius. People hoarded older coins that still contained significant silver. They demanded payment in goods rather than currency. They conducted transactions through barter whenever possible. The official currency was avoided when alternatives existed. In Germany during the early 1920s, Stage 5 saw citizens rushing to convert marks into anything tangible. Foreign currencies, gold, real estate, durable goods, anything was preferable to holding papier marks that lost value by the hour. In America, Stage 5 is happening now. You can see it in multiple ways. You can see it in the explosion of interest in alternative assets. Cryptocurrency adoption has grown from nothing to hundreds of millions of users in just over a decade. Whatever you think about specific cryptocurrencies, their rapid adoption reflects a loss of faith in government currency. You can see it in the precious metals market. Central banks around the world are buying gold at the fastest pace in decades. China, Russia, India, Turkey, nations representing billions of people are accumulating gold reserves while reducing their dollar holdings. They know the pattern. They're preparing for what comes next. You can see it in real estate markets, where prices have risen far beyond what income growth can justify. People are converting dollars into property because they sense that holding currency is a losing proposition. You can see it in the collectibles market, art, rare watches, vintage cars, sports memorabilia, all reaching record prices as people seek stores of value outside the financial system. You can see it in the social media discussions, the podcasts, the alternative financial media that has exploded in recent years. Millions of people are waking up to what's happening to their money. They're sharing information. They're seeking solutions. They're losing faith. And you can see it in the surveys. Trust in institutions, the Federal Reserve, banks, the government, has fallen to historic lows. People don't believe the official narratives anymore. They don't trust the experts who told them inflation was transitory. They don't trust the institutions that have presided over the destruction of their purchasing power. Stage 5 is the crumbling of faith that precedes the collapse. It's the recognition, spreading through the population, that something is fundamentally wrong with the money. It's the search for exits from a burning building. The United States is deep into Stage 5. The awakening is accelerating. Each new crisis, each new round of money printing, each new bout of inflation, each new institutional failure, wakes more people up. And once people lose faith in a currency, that faith is almost impossible to restore. Underscore 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 underscore. Stage 6, the desperate interventions. This is where the dollar is now entering. This is the stage that has preceded every currency collapse in history. This is the point of no return. Stage 6 is characterized by increasingly desperate government actions to maintain the fiction of monetary stability. These actions treat symptoms while ignoring, and often worsening, the underlying disease. In Rome, Stage 6 arrived with Diocletian's edict on maximum prices in 301 AD. Facing runaway inflation and social unrest, Diocletian attempted to solve the problem through force. The edict set maximum legal prices for over 1,000 goods and services. The penalty for charging more was death. The penalty for hoarding was death. The penalty for refusing to bring goods to market was death. The edict was a catastrophic failure. Merchants refused to sell at mandated prices, preferring to hide their goods or stop producing entirely. Black markets exploded. Shortages became universal. The economy fractured into chaos. But Diocletian didn't fail because his implementation was flawed. He failed because you cannot legislate value into a worthless currency. You cannot force prices down when the money used to pay those prices is collapsing. You cannot arrest your way to monetary stability. In revolutionary France, Stage 6 saw the same pattern. The government implemented the law of the maximum, setting price ceilings and threatening violators with execution. They made it illegal to refuse assignats or to demand payment in gold or silver. They created an elaborate enforcement apparatus to compel acceptance of worthless paper. It didn't work. It never works. The assignats collapsed anyway. In Weimar Germany, Stage 6 included capital controls, foreign exchange restrictions, and increasingly authoritarian attempts to force continued acceptance of the dying mark. None of it prevented the hyperinflationary collapse. What does Stage 6 look like in contemporary America? Look at the increasing intervention in financial markets. The Federal Reserve now purchases not just government bonds but corporate bonds, mortgage-backed securities, and other assets that were once considered far outside its mandate. The central bank has become the buyer of last resort for an ever-expanding range of financial instruments. Look at the discussions of yield curve control, the policy of using unlimited money creation to pin interest rates at artificially low levels regardless of inflation. This policy was used by Japan with destructive results and is now openly discussed for America. Look at the proposals for central bank digital currencies. A digital dollar would give the government unprecedented control over money. Every transaction could be tracked. Currency could be programmed to expire if not spent. Negative interest rates could be implemented without the option of holding cash. Purchases the government disapproves of could be blocked. This isn't theoretical. The Federal Reserve is actively developing a digital dollar. The European Central Bank is developing a digital euro. China has already launched its digital yuan. The infrastructure for total monetary control is being built right now. Look at the discussions of price controls that emerge whenever inflation becomes politically uncomfortable. Politicians propose capping grocery prices, rent prices, energy prices, treating symptoms exactly as Diocletian did, with exactly the same inevitable results. Look at the increasing capital controls around the world. Reporting requirements for financial transactions grow more stringent every year. Limits on cash transactions are implemented in one country after another. The ability to move money freely is being systematically restricted. These are the desperate interventions of Stage 6. Each one is presented as a solution to economic problems. Each one actually worsens those problems while expanding government control. Each one is a sign that the authorities know the system is failing and are trying to prevent escape. Stage 6 is not about solving the problem. The problem, decades of currency debasement, cannot be solved without allowing the painful corrections that politicians refuse to accept. Stage 6 is about control. It's about keeping the population trapped in the system until the system fails. And Stage 6 always ends the same way. Underscore 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 underscore. Stage 7, the collapse. Throughout history, Stage 7 has varied in speed but not in outcome. Sometimes the final collapse takes years. Sometimes it takes months. In extreme cases, it takes weeks. But it always comes. In Rome, Stage 7 was a prolonged disintegration spanning decades. The economy fragmented into local subsistence systems. The complex trade networks that had united the empire dissolved. The government lost the ability to collect taxes in a meaningful currency and began demanding payment in kind, grain, cloth, labor. The military became unreliable as payments became irregular. The unified empire fractured into competing regions. The Western Roman Empire didn't fall to barbarian invasions. It fell because its money died, and everything that depended on money died with it. The barbarians simply occupied the ruins. In France, Stage 7 was swift and total. The assignat, which had been created in 1789, was worthless by 1796. In just 7 years, the currency went from creation to complete collapse. The printing plates were publicly destroyed, and France was forced to start over with a new monetary system. In Germany, Stage 7 was the most extreme and famous example. The hyperinflation of 1923 saw the mark lose all value within months. A currency that had traded at 4.2 marks per dollar before the war traded at 4.2 trillion marks per dollar at the hyperinflation's peak. Prices doubled every few days. A lifetime of savings couldn't buy a loaf of bread. The social consequences were devastating. The middle class was destroyed. Faith in institutions evaporated. Extremism flourished in the chaos. Within a decade, the Nazi Party had risen to power on the economic devastation caused by the currency collapse. What will Stage 7 look like for the dollar? No one knows exactly, because every collapse has unique characteristics. But certain elements are predictable based on historical patterns. There will likely be a loss of the dollar's reserve currency status. This process is already underway, as major nations create alternative payment systems and reduce their dollar holdings. When the dollar loses reserve status, the trillions held overseas will return to American shores, creating massive inflationary pressure. There will likely be rapidly accelerating inflation, possibly hyperinflation. The purchasing power that has been lost gradually will be lost suddenly. Prices will rise faster than wages can adjust. Savings denominated in dollars will evaporate. There will likely be increasing social instability. When money fails, the social contract frays. When people's life savings become worthless, they seek scapegoats and radical solutions. Every major currency collapse has been followed by political upheaval, sometimes peaceful, often violent. There will likely be a forced transition to a new monetary system. This could be a new fiat currency, a return to commodity backing, a central bank digital currency, or something else entirely. The nature of this new system will depend on who holds power when the old system fails. What will not happen is a return to normal. Stage 7 is the end of an era. Whatever emerges will be fundamentally different from what came before. Underscore 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 underscore. The 7 stages I've described are not theoretical. They are empirical. They have been observed in every significant currency collapse throughout recorded history. They represent the life cycle of fiat money, from initial stability through gradual debasement to eventual destruction. The only questions are timing and preparation. Some analysts believe Stage 7 is years away. They point to the dollar's unique position as the world's reserve currency, the size and diversity of the American economy, the lack of obvious alternatives. They may be right about the timing. Other analysts believe Stage 7 is imminent. They point to the exponential acceleration of money creation, the global movement away from dollar dependence, the visible cracks in the financial system. They too may be right. What virtually no serious monetary historian disputes is the direction. Stage 6 leads to Stage 7. It has never been otherwise. The pattern does not have exceptions. The difference between those who are destroyed by currency collapse and those who survive, even prosper, is preparation. And preparation must happen before Stage 7 arrives, not during or after. Those who prepared in Rome by acquiring land, commodities, and skills maintained their status through the collapse. Those who trusted the denarius until the end lost everything. Those who prepared in France by converting assignats into real assets before the collapse emerged wealthy. Those who held paper until it became worthless were ruined. Those who prepared in Germany by holding foreign currencies and real property survived the hyperinflation. Those who trusted the mark were destroyed. The pattern is clear. The warning is explicit. History is telling you exactly what is coming and exactly what to do about it. Underscore 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 underscore. I've spent years researching these patterns because I believe understanding them is the most important financial knowledge anyone can possess. What happens to money affects every aspect of life: your security, your freedom, your family's future. Understanding the 7 stages transforms how you see the world and how you prepare for what's coming. If this information has been valuable to you, I want to ask you to do something important. Think about who in your life needs to hear this. Think about the family members and friends who are making financial decisions without understanding the framework that should guide those decisions. Think about the people you care about who are deep in Stage 5 denial, trusting institutions that have failed them repeatedly. Share this with them. Leave a comment telling me what stage you believe we're in. I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely interested in your perspective. The discussions that happen here often illuminate aspects of this topic that I haven't fully explored. If you want to understand not just the diagnosis but the treatment, specific strategies for protecting wealth through monetary transitions, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. The information we share here could make the difference between financial devastation and security for you and your family. History has given us a warning. The 7 stages have played out over and over, across centuries and civilizations. The pattern is clear. The dollar's position within that pattern is identifiable. Stage 6 has begun. Stage 7 is coming. The only question is what you'll do with this warning.